Blog Talk Radio.
Hey there! Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio's double feature weekend. We started yesterday, we're here today, and we're going on tomorrow, and I don't know, maybe we'll just be double featuring all the time. It's fun. We are airing live from Asheville, North Carolina. For some reason, we keep coming back here. And today's show features acclaimed actor and author Kathryn-Leigh-Scott, known for the TV series Dark Shadows back in 1966, also Star Trek, The Next Generation, 1987, The Great Gatsby, 1974. Very excited. She's really, that's three things. But, I mean, if you go look at her biography, you could be reading for days because she has done so much, not only in the acting field, but also in the writing world. She's amazing, and we're very excited to have her here. As always, we're your hosts, Nancy Reed and Lisa Smith, as we travel the country. We're a mother-daughter team publishing our Blend magazines, documenting parks and public lands, and also taking care of pets. We pet sit. It's a good thing to stay COVID safe, and that's what we do, and we love our animals. So if you hear a few little yappy dogs here in Asheville, you know, there are spokespeople, so you may hear that. But we also have a special guest, Steve Schneikert, here as our guest co-host, and he's been on numerous shows with us, not only as a guest and a part of radio plays. You know, we love our shenanigans with our radio plays, but on so many shows, but also our Hollywood history expert with amazing podcasts looking at the world of Hollywood history, not just in Hollywood, but how it has gone around the world. So he is back here. So, Steve, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for having me on to co-host, and especially with Kathryn.
I
one
know.
of my
Are
favorites.
you ready? I know, because as soon as I messaged you, you're like, I
Cool.
told, you know, a friend Billy, I'm like, oh my gosh, Steve's going to go like bonkers, and you sent me this big, long thing, like pages of Kathryn. And now Kathryn's here. Kathryn, welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Lisa, Nancy, and Steve. It's lovely to talk to all of you.
I think we're having a holiday party, right? Can we just say
I
that?
think so. How far is Asheville from Salisbury, North Carolina?
Oh, Salisbury, Soul, or?
No, Salisbury is in the state. Yeah.
Oh, Salisbury, the state. I will see. Let's see.
It can't be very far. It's not far from, I think it's about 45 minutes from Charlotte.
2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, east of Asheville. 2 hours east of Asheville, just south of Greensboro. I think we've been through there. I mean, we travel full time, so.
Well, it's a wonderful antebellum town. And I know it well because my first husband, Ben Martin, who was a Time Life photographer, came from Salisbury. So I've been there many, many, many times.
I love that you're talking about North Carolina, and there's something. I know you're a writer, and you've written novels, memoirs, and then like coffee table books, and bunny books. We can get into that later.
Bunny books.
I'm just going to bring that up, but honestly. I love your publishing history, and I look at, both of your husbands in life, being in that industry, too. It's interesting that you were also in that, both with Ben, who you're talking about, and then your next husband, your late husband. I find that amazing. I mean, he did Los Angeles Magazine, so it's kind of always been there, but North Carolina,
I think
too.
if I had not become an actress, I would have been a journalist. In fact, writing and acting have always been twin careers, but I kept getting scholarships as an actress. I got work as an actress, so you go where your life leads you. But my first husband was a Time Life photographer, and Jeff Miller, my husband who passed away 12 years ago, was the founding editor of Los Angeles Magazine, the first city magazine in the country. And I think there are about 400 that used the template that he came up with in 1960. And then my boyfriend is a journalist, and he's written 6 thrillers now. And but he was most recently with Bloomberg as an editor. So I'm always attracted to writers and particularly journalists.
You marry and hook up well.
I do. I've been very lucky with the men that I've known. I've had 2 good marriages and a splendid boyfriend. So how lucky can a gal be?
I love this, but words are really part of the acting, and I want to go back to the Asheville, North Carolina part, because there is something about North Carolina that, in South, I don't know if it's just like you're going to the mountains through the swamp, and then you still have the coast, that all this mysticism happens. So there's all of that, but like Asheville, North Carolina, I've got to give a shout out to our friends at the Lion and the Rose Bed and Breakfast, because this is where we found it, like 2 years ago. We didn't expect to land on their doorstep. At this bed and breakfast, and you think the Lion and the Rose, that goes into a whole other, field of, the arts. And we didn't expect to get there, and, went to bed that night in the bed and breakfast after a long conversation with them and a few beers, because they make their own beer there. And they're dog friendly, which we love, and have dogs, which we love. And I started reading this book on the history of Asheville, and that's when I found out about F. Scott Fitzgerald, his wife, who died in Asheville, Zelda Fitzgerald, in a fire, which was in a mental health institute when she was waiting to, what I say, get your brain zapped, and that's terrible, but that's what they were doing at the time. Shock therapy. And there was a fire in the kitchen or next door to where she was, in this holding pen kind of thing. I know I make it sound terrible, but it is kind of cold.
Well, isn't Joe? I think Joe Mitchell is from there as well, isn't he?
Yeah,
the New Yorker writer and I mean, wonderful writer.
Henry.
Henry.
Henry, we went to his gravesite. That was it. So the next morning, I'm reading all of this about what happens in Asheville, music and all these writings and theater, all this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, where did we just land? We landed in Utopia. And so the next morning, we went out early morning, pre-breakfast, like 5, 6 in the morning, went out to the graveyard behind them at the Lion and the Rose. And this is in the Montford Historic District. Over 600 historic homes we found out on the last Gray Line trolley tour we took. And they talked about the play that you're going to be doing tomorrow night. And it is called The Gift of the
Magi.
Magi, I did it.
It's interesting. It's been done so many times. It's been adapted so many times. Julie Harris did a beautiful reading of it some years ago. And also WCCO Radio in 1983 did a wonderful rendition with Dave Moore. And it was so beautifully adapted. And the adaptation that we are doing tomorrow evening, that David and Selby and I are doing, is a 2-hander adaptation by Patrick McRae. And it reads beautifully. That story is, it's called a classic because it is. But it has such durability. And the other background story about The Gift of the Magi, which I just discovered last night, is that O. Henry wrote for a newspaper. And he always waited until the last minute to write something, and so the Gift of the Magi was something that he kind of swiftly wrote to meet a deadline, and when you look at the power of his words, and it's just remarkable.
There's something about deadlines, man, and when you go to his graveyard, I need to go look up the graveyard name. It's Ridgeway or something. It begins with an R. It's behind the Lion and Rose Montford District. People leave him pennies. Yeah. In his life, I want someone to make a thing on his life, because he moved around a lot. He really was never really was profitable, I don't think, as a writer, or Henry. I think, and that's, people leave him pennies. They put pennies on Thomas Wolfe's grave too, and his family. It's like if you're going to put a penny,
another Southern writer.
Yeah, it is kind of wild how they all kind of congregate in one area, and then you're talking about your husband there too, your ex-husband there. But I want to go back to the Dark Shadows, because if I don't, people are going to yell. And I brought up the Dark Shadows to Nancy, and she immediately, a lot of time we were in Africa, so we missed some of it, but her parents watched it. But Steve, you've got to tell her the story, because you were one of the kids running home from school to watch it.
Yes, I was.
And did you watch it from the original?
Yes, June 27th, 1966.
The black and white, when it went
I was
color.
12 going on 13, and that was a perfect time to start the program because it was just 2 weeks into summer vacation. So you got all the kids getting hooked on it. So by the time school started in fall, we would rush home to be home by 4 p.m. because it was 4 p.m. in San Jose, California on ABC. And when I first saw you, Kathryn, you were my first celebrity crush. I loved Maggie Evans. Seriously. Even to the point where when David Selby joined the cast as Quentin, a friend of mine, we saved our quarters, dimes, and nickels to make a phone call to Dan Curtis Studios. We spoke with his secretary, but she would not allow us to speak with him because we wanted to be on the show. It was the storyline with David and Amy, and we wanted to protect David and Amy from Quentin.
Oh, my gosh.
When they met him, they heard his voice when they picked up that old telephone.
Right, of course. And that's when I was playing Rachel Drummond, the governess. It was one of the 4 roles I played. But it's interesting because you mentioned that particular storyline, which was based on The Turn of the Screw. But all of the stories that we did on Dark Shadows are based on classic literature. The Picture of Dorian Gray and the Mary Shelley stories and Hester Prynne, the Scarlet Letter. Everything that we did was our interpretation. It also allowed us to do all of that time traveling. We were in 4 different time periods. So when I started on the show, and I was on that very first day, I was Maggie Evans in contemporary Collinsport, 1966, working as a waitress in the diner. And within a year, when Barnabas came on the show, Jonathan Frid, I started playing his unrequited love, Josette Dupre, and that was, of course, in the 1700s. Then Rachel Drummond, when Quentin came on the show, that's David Selby, and I played Lady Kitty Hampshire, a conniving noblewoman. So those are my 4 roles. Couldn't have been more different from each other, and but in 4 different time periods.
And they were wonderfully played by you.
Thank you.
Every time you came on that TV, you glowed.
Thank you. I think it's because I enjoy the work so much.
He's in a crush mode.
He still has a crush. I have to say, though, if that transmitted across the airwaves, it's only because it was just a joy to work on Dark Shadows. I mean, it was my very first acting job, but it was the first acting job for quite a few of us. And we were like a family. We were in this small studio all by ourselves in what's known as Hell's Kitchen area of Manhattan. And the young ones, like me, were able to work with an Academy Award nominee, Grayson Hall, a Hollywood legend, Joan Bennett, and wonderful stage actors like Mitch Ryan and Lewis Edmonds, Thayer David, Clarice Blackburn, Humbert Estrado, really wonderful actors. How could I be that lucky? I still can't believe it 55 years later.
That's amazing. When you think, that's one of the biggest things like I wanted to ask you was going from, here it is, a Gothic soap opera, right, which is really transformational as it was, and it went from black and white to color. And then now look at where we are with streaming services. So acting is now, I mean, I know so many authors right now that it's like get your books out there now. Get your stories out there now, because Netflix, Hulu, everybody's so busy buying up things where they can, because we're all binge watching. And it's also giving this opportunity for shows in the past to come back to the present. So, like Dark Shadows and stuff, I know we're going to get to see that at some point. And I know it's been reprised, like, Johnny Depp, Tim Burton did that. And, seriously, that doesn't surprise me, Johnny Depp being part of that.
No,
and
not at all.
Tim Burton's still like magic genius, right? Crazy genius. But for you as an actor, and also being you're a wordsmith, right? So putting that together, how has it been over the years in actually looking at how things have progressed?
What's interesting is that you raised a point there about the fact that today, there's streaming and all that. The reason Steve ran home from school to watch it is because there was no other way to watch it. And if he missed a few minutes of it, chances are he would never see it again. And, Dark Shadows is known for its bloopers. We did it live. So we did a half-hour show on a daily basis, which meant that, you learned your lines and had a couple of run-throughs. But we were really flying by the seat of our pants. And if anything went wrong with a camera or with a prop, or somebody forgot their lines or whatever, it was like summer stock. You just carried on. So we're known for our bloopers. And Steve, Dan Curtis used to laugh at us when we were in tears over what had happened. And we couldn't redo it because at 4 o'clock sharp, the 4 o'clock news came on. So there was no time to redo the show. And today, now, of course, with DVD and streaming and everything, we're watching those shows, bloopers and all. But the only reason that, we can, that you were running home is because that was the only way you could see it. And I'm wondering if that didn't have a lot to do with the fact that it became such a phenomenon.
I agree.
think so. Yeah.
It could be. It could be. I don't know. But it's 55 years later. We have never once been off the air. I know it's on, I think it's on Netflix still. It's never been off the air. And the other thing is that the Dark Shadows actors still get residuals. I can't think of any other soap opera where the actors are still, getting royalties on what
good.
they
No, but that's good. But that's good because a lot
awesome.
get left off.
That's good to hear.
That is really good to hear because the industry
is good to hear. And I'll tell you another piece of news. There is a very good chance because a wonderful writer named Mark B. Perry has written a new take on Dark Shadows. It's I haven't read the script, and I don't know what's going to happen with it, but there's a wonderful production company, Amasia, behind it, and there's a very good chance that Dark Shadows could be back, streaming or prime time or whatever, but a whole new incarnation of Dark Shadows. And in that case, it would be quite wonderful if some of the actors who were on the show all those years ago, those of us who are still around, could be invited to be back on the show. That would be great.
They would be sorry if they didn't invite you all back.
Well, Tim Burton and Johnny Depp did, so I think that we have a precedent.
Excellent.
I think that is so cool that you're a part of that, but in just seeing your whole career too. I mean, Dark Shadows obviously is very it's iconic, right? And then looking at all the Great Gatsby again. Now there we go. F. Scott Fitzgerald, you're back to. You need to go to Asheville. I'm just saying. You've got a tie there. You need to go there because they were all hanging out, right?
Indeed.
But I mean, the Great Gatsby, and then you look at your list, Star Trek. You go all the way through all Dallas. I mean, all of these
Dallas and Dynasty.
Oh my God!
I've done, and I was on Knots Landing, so that's three.
Oh wow!
3 of the old
and Hotel
time soaps. And then, but the ones that, I'm usually asked about are Space 1999, Star Trek, Police Squad, because those are and Dark Shadows, of course, and Hammer, because those are the cult favorites. It's undeniable. I've had my share of doing these shows that live on in people's imaginations that they grew up with, that they love, and that's kind of fun to be asked about them.
How do you choose what you're going to do? Like when someone comes to you, hey, I'm going to do this. Is it because it could be Steve? We on the show.
I say yes.
All the time.
I mean, if the phone rings, I say yes. Where? What time?
Oh, see, you don't care about what role because it's like.
Oh, I do. I've turned down a couple of things, but surprisingly, not that many because you get an opportunity. You don't know what's going to happen. A few times I've been offered roles, and there's been a conflict. I've had to turn something down because I couldn't do two things at one time. Although on one occasion I was offered two things, and the two production companies worked it out so that I could play Dan Travanti's wife, Janet Murrow, in the Edward R. Murrow story, at the same time that I worked with George C. Scott in The Last Days of Patton. Both of them took place in the World War II era, and they were both shooting in London at the same time. And for about 2 months, I went back and forth between the two shows, which is remarkable. Actors very seldom get that kind of opportunity. Usually have to make a choice.
I think
that's wonderful. I like the fact that you worked with George C. Scott and then also with his son, Campbell.
I did.
At one
yes,
time.
in the 11th Green. And I didn't have scenes with Campbell, but yeah, we were in the same film. Oh, but still, exactly. And I loved that. It was really fun. The two men could not be more different, father and son. But just both of them remarkable actors.
Yeah, what I want to see is like you've gone through all of this history with these different people, and you go to roles. Do you look at a role and go, this may be a small role compared to this over here, what I did in Dark Shadows, and understand
I've done
the impact of the small roles? I mean, because some of the small roles can be the biggest and most important roles too, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't turn something down because it's a small role, because there's always something that you can bring to it. I'm trying to think of some of the things where I've stepped in. Oh, I'll tell you. Here's an example. Woody Allen. I went in to meet the casting people for something, and I ended up being asked to do a role in a Woody Allen film. I played Wanda. It was one day of filming, but I got to be on the set with Woody Allen and Storaro, his lighting cameraman. And I wouldn't give up that experience, not for anything. I got to work with Timothy Chalamet and Cherry Jones. You don't say no to that. And I knew it would be my only opportunity to work with Woody Allen, and I wanted to work with him.
Ah. So now people would ask you, why would you want to work with him? Because he is controversial. I have to bring that up. So, I mean, that's such a weird thing in life, because
can you think of anybody that doesn't
weird,
have a bit of controversy in their lives? And no, I do not pay attention to that at all. And you may as well know right now, I have no use for cancel culture. None.
That's good girl.
Are we not meant to listen to Mozart? Are we not meant to what? I mean, I could begin naming historical names, and do we want to cancel culture? A couple of our presidents, including Kennedy, for behavior. I don't think so.
Nope.
I think there's a. No, that part of it doesn't appeal to me.
We talk about this all the time on our shows, even just in, we're very non-political in regards to, I know Nancy and I, neither one of us just, as the people of this show don't belong to any kind of real party. Like and it goes beyond that. And I feel like this country goes in like, if you're this party, if you're that, you've got to do this and that. And so we're like, no, it's about common sense and
I'll put
understanding
it this way.
history, right?
I've worked with a lot of people who are controversial, and that includes, actors, directors, writers, publishers, all kinds of people. But I really take them for the value of my personal relationship with them and my own working relationship with them.
Good point.
I mean, I can only say that Hugh Hefner is certainly controversial, but I admire him enormously as an editor, a publisher, and when I was doing the Bunny
Freedom
Years,
of press. He was one of the first people about freedom of press. He really was one of our top people to really stand up for the press. Seriously.
Yeah,
no matter what
and not only
thinks.
that, and he would know this, all of the work that and support he's given to film preservation, and and the number of times that I see his name pop up or the foundation pop up supporting a film that I really admire and value. And when I was working on the book, he couldn't have been more professional. Couldn't have been more supportive. So I used him only as an example of one of many, many, many people that I have worked with that would fall into that category of being controversial. I really just can't abide it.
With the Bunny's part, go ahead, Nancy. Sorry, it's
I was just gonna. No, it's okay. If you don't like something, then don't do it. If you don't like a certain kind of food, then don't go in that kind of restaurant. You have the choice. Nobody makes you.
Yeah, it does, and it doesn't bear all that much attention in my mind. I mean, I know we're devoting a lot of conversation to it now, but it's not even something I talk about. It's just my viewpoint, my way of dealing with things in my life.
Well, I think it's also, when we talk about the creative arts, there's the creative arts and people are the creative geniuses that they are. And when you're dealing with creative geniuses, that is who they are, and they're not going to have a typical life, and so you can't put them into your typical suburbia life with a couple of cars, kids, and a little boxed house. That doesn't really normally happen in the arts, and it can, and I know people who do, but then they're living this weird double life too. So it's a weird thing, and we should not be the judge of other people's lives unless they really inflict harm, like really that we know of. You know what I mean? It's like you can't. It's like Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson did some really good music, whether or not you like it, and maybe did some really bad things, but it's a very weird, slippery slope of going like, now we can't listen to Chuck Berry because he had a peeping hole through women's bathrooms. But he was the birth of rock and roll, so get on with it. So it's kind of a weird thing. I mean, it's like you could carry on and on and on and on, but nobody is perfect, and no, the bad things are bad. And so before everybody gets on me, like, get over it because I'm not going to deal with it. It is exactly that. We have to have balance and look at what we're doing. It's kind of project oriented in a way, isn't it? Like if you're doing a film, you're doing the film, and do you really care about everything else? Like just move forward. Like do the project at hand. That's what you're hired for.
Yeah.
Yes. You wouldn't want to be blamed for everything your character did.
No. And and by the way, I've done an awful lot of writing. I'm writing now almost a piece a month for AARP, The Ethel. The Ethel was named after the woman who started AARP. And The Ethel is for primarily women. I mean, they have a lot of different free online newsletters that appeal to, various segments. But I love writing for The Ethel. And I've got a piece coming out In fact, all you have to do is go online and Google the Ethel. And I find that in writing for the Ethel, I'm very often able to choose a topic that I've been kind of exploring in my own mind and then flesh it out into a piece that has more universal appeal. And I'm really enjoying writing for them.
That's awesome.
So I've got pieces. I had a piece the last 2 months, and I've got something now in December, January, February, and March.
Cool.
Yeah.
And
I hope your listeners will look for the Ethel, because that's a lot of the writing that I'm doing now. I mean, I still write books, and I still have other projects in the works, but that's the most immediate writing that I'm doing.
I think it's really cool. And if you look at ARP or AARP and you read the stories in there, to me, it's like this is not the same publication that it was 20, 30 years ago. Like what you would write about.
Nothing is. But I'm really thrilled to be a part of this group of primarily, in fact, I think they're all women writers. Women that who write for Washington Post, New York Times,
awesome.
Daily Beast, and a lot of different publications that I really respect, and to join their ranks has been really fun. I also wrote a piece for the Daily Beast not that long ago, and I've written for a lot of publications lately. And I really get a lot of satisfaction out of it.
What's happening next? Because I know you've got now the gift of
the
Magi.
The gift of Magi. I'm getting there. I have my space good to make sure I do it. The gift of Magi. You're doing this live tomorrow.
Know.
But this is really cool. So it's a reading of David Selby.
Fun.
So tell us about this.
David Selby, and we have done so much work together over the years, not just on Dark Shadows, but even when we were doing Dark Shadows, we did a production of, we did Miss Julie at the Actors Studio together. And a year ago, we did A Christmas Carol with many of the other Dark Shadows actors. And then we did a wonderful piece that my friend Susan Sullivan, you know her from Dharma and Greg and Castle. Falcon Crest. Anyway, Susan and I were Playboy bunnies together, so we've been friends a long time. And she wrote a piece that it's really fun. You can find it on YouTube. It's called What Friends Do. And it's a one act. And David Selby, Susan Sullivan, Mitch Ryan, and I did that about a year ago. But it's had a vast number of views. I mean, it's been hugely popular. And I love doing it. We lost Mitch Ryan this last year, and this was the last. I did the last two things that he worked on: the Christmas Carol and this piece. But to be able to work with people that you've known that long, David Selby played Susan's husband on Falcon Crest. Mitch Ryan did Dharma and Greg with her. We were all of us in Dark Shadows, including Susan, who played a ghost in one episode. So
cool.
we've all known each other 50 plus years. So that was really fun. And I'm going to be doing a few more things like that. And then another thing that's coming up, I'm sure you know who Marcel Marceau is.
Mm-hmm.
He's the pantomime artist.
Mm-hmm.
He passed away. Anyway, my first husband, Ben Martin, did a Life magazine pictorial on Marceau. The two sort of bonded, and they collaborated on a book called Marcel Marceau, Master of Mime. And I'm republishing that book, but I'm also mounting an exhibit of the photographs at the National Arts Club in March. So if you're in New York, stop by the National Arts Club. That's there. But there are just a lot of fun things to do. Again, Steve, legacy is very important to me. And it's one of the reasons why I'm very supportive of Hollywood history. I have to say, being on the board of the Beverly Hills Women's Club and being on the board of the Hollywood Women's Club, when both were, really struggling to stay alive, And also the Silent Film Society. I did a presentation with them when I was in LA a couple of months ago. Silent films are just so important and to be preserved. And I used to do all of my book signings at the Hollywood Studio Museum, which is where Jesse Lasky and Cecil B. DeMille did the first Hollywood films, The Squaw Man. And you know what the first Hollywood film ever done was?
What?
Count of Monte Cristo.
No way.
Right.
Yep.
Really?
Yes.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and but anyway, I applaud you for the work you do, but I'm very keen on supporting Hollywood history.
What
That's
did you
wonderful.
think?
And I happen, actually, Kathryn, I happen to fall into doing Hollywood history through Nancy and Lisa. They asked me to do a segment one time, and it just took off.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It's and your segments have gone onto shows in England with Channel Radio, and it's pretty. The thing is, Hollywood history does travel. That was what I was saying at the beginning. It's Hollywood connects people in so many ways, and shows are being done in Louisiana, Kentucky, or whatever, in England, and when you start tying everyone together, all the way to Hungary, right? Like, how many actors did so much in Hungary? So Steve always connects everybody back to the Hollywood side in some way. It's amazing.
It was when I was growing up, my brother and I used to sneak out the bedroom window at night when my parents were finally asleep, and we'd go down to Sunset Strip. And to us, that was part of Hollywood, whether people say it is or it isn't. To us,
it is. It is.
Yeah. And we would just troll the strip as two kids, and we would talk to the police and like, hey, just be careful and get home, and however you're getting out, get back in without getting caught. They were really nice, and we would see different stars come out of restaurants. And it was just magical. And when I think back to those days where the stars would go into a restaurant and they'd wave at you, and if you wanted an autograph, you could get one. They weren't so like now. I don't know if you can do that even anymore. I mean, it's harder now.
You can. There are some people that are open to it, but. But anyway, Hollywood was really just a small town for such a long time. So was Beverly Hills, and that kind of small town feeling about it is what you still experience when you go to the Hollywood Women's Club and and various other places that are still thriving.
I love
they're
that
from
you're part
that
of the
era.
Women's Club, because I know you're part of the Beverly Hills Women's Club, and women's clubs are all around the country, but we've had to, we used to belong to one up in the mountains in San Diego and Julian, where we first started our magazine, and 26 years ago, and I was the youngest woman there, and I was raising money for music education and pennies for pine trees, right? And so I was like, I want to get music to these kids up in this little tiny mountain town. How do I do it? And I'd put on concerts with people like Canned Heat and all these great musicians, brought them all in, raised this money. But the women's clubs were, we've got,
they have a long history.
To get in. We need to get in there,
Absolutely.
Women's clubs are history. They wrote diaries. Back in the day, they would always start the women's club meetings with a woman reading from the diaries of the pioneers and the miners women that came into that community.
And the suffragettes.
We had brothel women and hookers and all kinds of good stuff, but they included all women in that. And I thought that was really cool that they read from that book of what was going on at that time to see what was going on for women in that era. And women were the backbone of that community. and in so many communities. And now, where are we in women's clubs? Where are we?
No, they have to stay relevant. That's part of their. That's part of their. That's part of what they need to do is to stay relevant. But in the Beverly Hills Women's Club, for example, was the first philanthropic organization in Beverly Hills. It started as a Red Cross center, and the Hollywood Women's Club was even earlier than that. And there was an outreach to the community. And at the Hollywood Women's Club, you had Gloria Swanson lecturing on, because she was such a foodie. Wow. She was lectured on nutrition. You had Mary Pickford teaching flower arranging. You had a canteen where, even some men like Errol Flynn used to come for lunch. It has an incredible history like that. And even now, there are men who are welcome as members of the club, and there's huge outreach just within the neighborhood and within that Hollywood community. It's still a philanthropic and charitable organization, and it's meant as a social club. You can drop in there anytime, for tea and to
that's
talk
not how
to
it
women.
was in the mountain town where we were.
Well,
but it doesn't matter. That's the same.
It doesn't matter. It's got to find its place. Yeah.
Each area has its place, and I think that is. It's just special, and we have to keep that going because there's a nurturing thing and a strength. I mean, you have that strength. Listen to you talking. You have that strength, And I think that it's so important also in movies, in TV, in writing, in music, the creative arts. Even women doing the makeup art and the fashion, and there's men and women in both of that, by the way. Everyone just, I always say, but women in the arts I think there's a strength to it, even though they make you faint a lot. Nancy, that was Nancy's thing this morning, was going, why did they always make the women faint back then? But there was still a strength, right? There's always a resiliency that, so as an actor, how has that been to be strong? Because even just listening to you talk, you're a strong, strong woman. How do you keep that resiliency to stay strong? Because you've been through, you've been through a few times. Look at Black and White till now. She's streaming TV. And doing a show tomorrow that's going to be on YouTube live through smartphone TV. What? Smartphone theater.
But it actually, it's all of a piece, because what I was saying about women's clubs having to stay relevant, if they don't stay relevant, there's no point in their existence.
Exactly.
So we have to grow and find a reason for being. And the same is true with everything that I've done in either profession, acting or publishing. Publishing, for example, I remember when I was publishing 40 years ago, and in the very early days of when Amazon, became a force, and people were so against Amazon, it was going to close all of the bookstores and so on. Well, more and more bookstores are actually opening, and it's only and I'm supportive of it because there's so many authors now who would never be published if Kindle didn't exist or KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing didn't exist, because with the big conglomerations of publishing companies, it's not as open to taking on a new writer. Or somebody who's 75 and writes their first book, and it happens to be wonderful. You can do that with KDP. So I embraced it from the very beginning. I don't think Amazon is putting anybody out of business any more than television put radio out of business, or we wouldn't be talking today.
Right.
So I'm not somebody who is opposed to technology and new things. There are certain things that I would never get involved with. This whole thing of NFTs and cryptocurrency. Okay, that's another world. I'm not talking about that.
I don't even want to look.
I'm not talking about it at all. What I'm talking about are these innovations that I think can prove to be very beneficial. They can be harmful and so on, but they're largely beneficial. The fact that we have the technology that allows somebody in Indonesia to write a book that can be published and everybody around the world reading it, I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. Cool. It's simply opened opportunities, right?
I agree with you.
It's leveled the playing field. Everybody is going to be John Grisham.
No,
I agree with you on
the writing.
But it does depend on your writing, and if you didn't get an editor and everything, that's your doo-doo, right? But
now we get into another.
That's
area
a whole other show, but
it's a whole other show interviews. Because, quite frankly, there is too much being published that isn't edited properly or at all, and is simply not worthy of the paper or the time spent downloading it.
The reviews are important for authors,
but that's a completely different
other conversation. But I just want to say on the Amazon thing, what you brought up a really, really good point that we have not touched on is that it does breed bookstores reopening because people get pissy about what Amazon has become and it's changed. What it is, but it does lead up that competition in ways.
No, but what really makes somebody want to open a bookstore is that there is a need in the community. You can't just open a bookstore. I mean, you've got to fulfill a need, and somebody can open just a little pocket store. And start selling books that really appeal to that particular community. And so those bookstores are opening. And somehow the great big bookstores, the really big Barnes & Noble and so on, that exist in, larger cities, those will go on, but you'll find a lot of little mom and pop, as we call them, just as you find a lot of little mom and pop publishing companies. There are so many publishing companies, small presses, between San Diego and Santa Barbara, you wouldn't believe it. Small presses that are devoted to a single thing, like there's a company that does nothing but books on bed and breakfasts.
They
specialize. I know. Yep, and they specialize. But then magazines are doing that too, because you need to reach your audience. So it's the same principle. It's the same principle.
It's exciting, and we have bookshop.org, everyone, for when it really comes to independent bookstores, and they really do help that. It's we're in this time of change, and it's a very exciting thing. And if you don't like something like Amazon, well, look, listen, we pet sit across the country. You're not going to stop the Amazon boxes coming to the front door. It's not going to happen. Most people buy their dog food through Chewy or whatever it's called.
Well, I'll tell you, I have a sister-in-law who has a gift shop in Tower, Minnesota, population 500. You'd have to travel wide and far to find a gift shop as beautiful as hers, and she's actually, people drive from quite a distance to go there. If you make something wonderful, they will come. It's Field of Dreams, and it's the same with bookstores. It's the same. It's the same way with a cupcake place. You drive miles to go there because you want that cupcake. It really has to do with filling a community need. And
isn't that the same with people still watching Dark Shadows? Something becomes iconic. No, I'm bringing it back home.
That's an interesting segue.
I'm bringing it back home. It is because it's something iconic. You broke the mold with it. You did. I mean, and when you look at the bold and the beautiful.
I will not take. I was certainly part of that, but believe me, it was Dan Curtis that broke the mold with that.
But that is
just
but
like
look at it. Compared to the bold and the beautiful, like now that I've seen like what Nancy and Steve have told me about, and I started watching stuff. Now I'm like I'm hooked. Well, and all I want to see is like the bold and beautiful. Someone just bites someone's neck and just but now I can never unsee it now. So now it's just. This. I mean, it really is amazing what happened, and then looking at your career to where you are now, that you just kept going in so many ways and forms. I think you're an exceptional creative person and smart and strong. And damn, I can't wait to keep following what you're doing. Right, Steve? Like she's a badass.
I totally agree.
She's a badass.
She is. And I'm going to be. 10 feet off the ground. Thank you very much. Thank you. But
you deserve it.
Look, I'm Helen Forrest, if you know who that is. Helen Forrest was a canary, a singer with big band back in the era, and she was quoted as saying, because people kept asking her what was it like. She said, if I'd known that it was an era, I would have paid more attention. I feel like I'm saying the same thing. When we started Dark Shadows, we knew it was special because there was nothing else on afternoon television with a vampire. Yeah, but more than that, it was the use of special effects. It was the use of a repertory company of actors playing multiple roles without confusing the audience. There were a lot of innovative things about Dark Shadows that you didn't find on the other shows. So from that point of view, absolutely. And I think that Dan Curtis, like Gene Roddenberry, had a real genius for doing something that was outside the box. But then, again, that's always the mark of something that becomes very special. It's not just Star Trek. It's Star Wars. It's look what Star Wars spawned. It's I'm glad to have been part of something that was innovative. But then so was Police Squad. That was special.
When you look back at soap operas, it always looks to me like when you look at a soap opera, I'm not talking about something like Dallas, because Dallas looks like a film. Soap operas had a different, I don't know if it's special effects lighting or it looked like you were in the living room with them. But they were done, they were done with 3 cameras, and they were done black and white. In the case of Dark Shadows, we were doing that show live. And the reason why we're able to watch it now is because of a process called kinescope. Kinescope is to make it at its simplest. It is a camera photographing a monitor, a television monitor of what is happening. So what you are watching is second generation. And of course, it's going to have a certain kind of look. And the other thing is that you've got actors moving in and out of pools of light. No matter how good Mel Handelsman was, who was our lighting director, no matter how artful he was, you're still depending upon the actors not to, stand in with their face in shadow or, it's in film, one is lit. And it's edited. Dark Shadows was not edited. Yeah, and those soap operas were not edited. So you're watching what would amount to a lot of outtakes if it were film.
Right. It's like a play. It's a real play. Yeah. That's what I think. Exactly. And I love that part of it. And tomorrow, everyone, the gift of the Magi. Listen to me. The Magi will be airing, so December 18th, 2022, at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube, right? So go watch this. It's Todd Feldstein's Smartphone Theater this is a live production directed by Patrick McRae. And you also have a 17-year-old music prodigy, Christian Marichnikov. See, I did that too, everyone. So this is an epic thing that's going to happen on YouTube live. You're going to be reading with David Selby, and everyone can watch it live and then watch it later, right, on demand.
You bet. It'll be on YouTube unto eternity.
Oh, we love that.
Cool.
We love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a real pleasure, and I encourage everyone to go to your website to connect with everything that you're doing. Give them the best website for them to go to, because I'm going up here. I got
you just go to www.Kathryn-Leigh-Scott.com.
And that's Leigh, Kathryn-Leigh-Scott.com is the website. Right?
And you'll find everything there. You'll find all of the books. You'll find news about Dark Shadows and news about everything else, too.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. We want to thank our friends over at the Lion and the Rose Bed and Breakfast. We'll see you soon. Hopefully, while we're here in Asheville, you can go to lion-rose.com. So if you stay there, just go around the corner. It's an easy walk to the graveyard where you can go see where O. Henry and Thomas Wolfe are laid to rest, and so many more. So it's just kind of one of those historic neighborhoods. And, of course, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Thank you so much, Steve, for being here. You can keep up with Steve's podcast on blendradioandtv.com. Thank you, Kathryn. We're going to close with a song called My Christmas Wish because, you know, that goes with the whole play when you think about it, for the gift of the Magi. I'm going to walk around saying that all day long now.
Yeah, she finally got it.
This is by Nikki Chris, and you can go to her website, nikkichris.com. She'll be on our anniversary show on January 8th and 9th. We'll be doing a 2-part series for our Sweet 16 birthday here at Big Blend Radio. So here it is, My Christmas Wish. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Kathryn.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Getting cold.